What's up, everybody? I'm Marcus.
I'm Ryan.
And together,
we are the Northwest Sports Fanatics.
Wild Card Weekend is in the bag, so we want to go over our preview for the next round, the Divisional Series. Let's start off here in the Northwest.
Okay.
New Orleans Saints versus the Seattle Seahawks.
A little rematch of earlier this year.
A rematch of earlier this year. You know, the Seattle, they beat the Saints 34-7. Let me take that back. They mollywopped the Saints 34-7 because that wasn't even close.
Right.
The 12th man, you know, it was a major factor in that game.
Absolutely.
But a key stat about that game, what I think Seattle has to do to win is Marshawn Lynch. He only had 45 yards, 2.8 yards per carry in that game against the New Orleans Saints in the victory. But his main man, Mr. Russell Wilson, had his back.
Right.
He went for 310 and 3 touchdowns.
Solid performance.
So for Seattle to win this game, you know the defense is going to be there. Sherman, the Legion of Boom, they're going to do their thing.
Right.
But the key for me is how good can Marshawn Lynch run against that Saints defense.
Do you think that he needs over 100 for them to win?
I don't think he needs over 100 because you have Russell Wilson back there.
Right.
And I think they need together collectively 150.
150, and they might be able to get W there.
And they can get a W there.
All right.
What about you? What about the New Orleans Saints? Some of the things they have to do to get a win.
All right, so for the New Orleans Saints, I don't think anyone really honestly gave them a shot with the Eagles at home based on how they were playing, how Eagles were playing at the end of the season at home with Nick Foles, plus on how bad the Saints were playing on the road. And that was their first playoff win on the road in their history. So it was a huge stat and a huge accomplishment for what they did. Obviously for Breeze, he needs to have a good game. To me, he's going to have to throw for over 300 yards passing. No question. None of this 200, 250. It has to be over 300.
Yep.
And for me, I think with Ingram, Sproles, Robinson, you're going to need at least 2 TDs there because they need balance. So for me, you know, play action, if you want it to work, like especially against the Legion of Boom, you're going to need to run the ball effectively. And the defense is tough there with the 12th man, but I think if you can get roughly out of those 3 players, maybe somewhere between 100 yards collectively, you know, 100, 110, 120 with a couple TDs. That'll be a huge edge. And obviously, Jimmy Graham last game was a no-show. 3 receptions, 44 yards. So if you want to win this game, he needs to touch the ball. To me, he has to have at least 10 targets and he needs to have at least 5 catches.
How many touchdowns?
At least 2. Okay. Because if you want to win with him, I think 1 touchdown won't cut it because unless someone like Lance Moore, Meacham, Stills, Watson can get the other one. But it's going to be a lot easier to get it to Jimmy Graham, which is probably your best offensive weapon besides Sproles, you know, on the offense there.
Okay.
And then I think a key member of the team that no one's going to be talking about that could help them win is the kicker. Shane Graham. So you cut your old kicker, you brought in a new one. He had 4 field goals last week, so he has confidence.
Huge.
So if it does come down to like a 20-20 kind of game, something of that nature, and it needs a field goal towards the end, and if it's long, maybe 50, 55 yards, Shane Graham could be the MVP for the Saints if they do win that game. And then on the defensive side, really quickly, 2 key players to watch out for since Vaccaro's out, the rookie at safety, Junior Gillette, and Cameron Jordan. We've said these names before, but if they're going to win, to me, they're going to probably have to have at least 3 sacks on Russell to cause pressure, and obviously the 12th man will have to kind of quiet down a little bit if they get that pressure. So what about predictions for the game? I know we didn't do too good last week. We did so-so, but you know, we got about half the games right.
One right.
But what do you think about a prediction for this upcoming weekend?
I'm going Seattle at home. No doubt about it. Best home team in the NFL. And they already laid the smackdown to the Saints once. I don't know if it's going to be as big of a blowout, but I do predict the Seattle to win. What about you?
Wow. You know, I didn't pick the Saints to win, you know, last week. And they're definitely the underdog this week. And if you have to compare how the playoffs are going right now, just kind of like the BCS, you know, these underdogs are winning these games. If you have to compare QB for QB, who's better, Drew Brees or Russell Wilson? To me, obviously, if you go for, you know, overall stats, it's Drew Brees, right? But can Drew Brees play like Drew Brees on the road again? And I think that he will play well, but I think that they will fall just short. And I think Seattle has enough to get, obviously, the victory there. And I think it will be a very close game, closer than people think. No blowouts this time around. I think the Saints are going to be well coached, and look for some trick plays from Sean Payton. Even if they do lose, maybe an onside kick.
You're going to have to do something.
Some kind of flavor, fourth down conversion, something like that. But I think I'd have to go with Seattle. So let's move forward to the next game that we have.
The New England Patriots.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the Indianapolis Colts are traveling to the New England Patriots.
Right.
Wow. Luck versus Brady.
Right.
What did I do to deserve this? Like, thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. We saw Peyton and Brady for so many years. It's nice to see the fresh face going against the wily Hall of Fame vet.
And this dude, Andrew Luck, is not playing. For New England, some of the things I think they need to do to win this game is Chandler Jones.
Yeah.
He has to keep Andrew Luck in check, keep getting pressure on him. He had 11.5 sacks this year. So I think that's going to be huge for him. And also, no Brandon Spikes.
Yeah, on IR.
Wow.
So that's a huge loss. If you don't know football, Brandon Spikes from University of Florida, he is a good pass rusher, and without him in the lineup, that's a key loss.
He's huge in the run game, too. Yeah, that's a huge loss for him. Also, on the offensive side of the ball, Stephen Ridley. You had a breakout year last year, and everybody was like, "Oh, Tom Brady got him a running back," and then you come back this year and just come back to earth and lay the goose egg.
Right.
You only had 700 yards rushing, and you had fumble problems, but this is the second season, so the regular season don't count no more.
Right.
We're going to need you to get 100 yards if the Patriots thinking about winning this game.
I also think, too, that if they decide to change the strategy and Belichick wants to go for weakness, that they're going to put Blunt in the game a lot more.
Let Blunt pound him.
And let him pound him, and you might be surprised. Blunt could end up getting a touchdown or two, depending on how they play him and how many, obviously, opportunities that he gets.
Congratulations to the newest 100-yard catch guy of the New England Patriots, Julian Edelman. Brady and Belichick, how can you go against them?
Yeah, it's really tough to go against them. I mean, at home, it's.
I love Andrew Luck. Don't get me wrong. But it's Brady and Belichick at home.
Right.
And what about Indianapolis? What are some of the things they have to do to win?
Well, I think the Colts right now are riding the emotional high. If you're down by 28 to a team that has a top 5 D in Kansas City and you find a way to win, to me, they're confident going in. Doesn't matter where they're going. Denver, New England, they're going to win in their minds. So I know, number one, Andrew Luck cannot throw 3 interceptions like he did last game to win the game. That has to be improved. You have to get something like 4-1 or 4-2.
You have a way better offense, even though the Chiefs scored points, but 3 interceptions against Tom Brady, that's not going to ride.
Right, that's not going to fly. Donald Brown, for me, he needs to rush for 80 yards or more against this New England defense to kind of make him honest, and he needs at least 1 touchdown because obviously, I hate to say it, but Trent Richardson so far, it just hasn't worked out, and, Donald Brown...
Where's Trent from?
Alabama. But, I guess Bama players, they do roll when they're on the defensive side, but maybe on the offensive side, it takes them a little while to get there, right? A different story, but expect Donald Brown and Trent Richardson to hopefully combine for somewhere between 80 to 100 yards, give them some good looks, but I think the keys are going to be obviously the receivers and the defense. So, T.Y. Hilton, you're going to need at least one or two touchdowns in that game. Fleener, Brazil, Rodgers, and Griff Whalen. You're going to need to combine, I think, probably 12 catches between those players. Get them some first downs so they don't have to obviously put all the pressure on Ty.
Some rhythm.
Some rhythm. And then obviously on defense, you have some key studs on this Colt defense.
Wow.
Antoine Bethea, LaRon Landry, Pro Bowler Jarrell Freeman, one of my favorite underrated linebackers, and obviously the OG Robert Mathis. So for the Colts to win, they need to put pressure on Tom Brady. To me, they're going to need at least 4 sacks in the game, put some pressure on him, maybe some key third down sacks, to frustrate Tom Brady, and you're going to need to score early and fast. To me, for the Colts to win, you need to score first. And if you score first and score quickly, that's going to give them the edge and the momentum.
A little psychological edge.
A little psychological edge, but obviously with Belichick and Brady, they're smart enough that they could be down like they were, in the past to Denver. You could be down by 20, 30 points as well, and they have the confidence to come back.
Tom Brady, man.
So as we go over these stats and players, who is your prediction for this game?
This is a tough one.
It's kind of hard to say because you want to say the favorites are going to win, but then
the Colts they're on such an emotional high.
Right.
So, but me, I can't. Sorry, Swaggy, but I can't go against Belichick and Brady at home. I'm going for the New England Patriots to win this game. What about you?
Oh man, this is tough.
Real tough.
It's really tough because I think of one of the underdog teams. I think that the Colts have a better shot than the Saints to win. The game. Can they do it? I think they can, but will they do it? I'm not sure. And I think if I have to lean towards a team, obviously, it's hard to go against Tom Brady, and it's hard to go against Bill Belichick. But I'm going to go on a limb. And I'm going to say the Indianapolis Colts are going to ride this momentum, and they're going to find a way to cause turnovers, and they're going to win a close game, maybe by a short amount of points, maybe like a field goal at the end. So I'm hoping that Indianapolis will bring it, and that might swing the playoffs and do another route. But I'm gonna say I would normally say New England, hands down, 9 out of 10 times. But based on what happened last week with that victory down by 28, I think that might spark some momentum going into this next game. So I'm going to go Indianapolis Colts.
How would this be for the Colts to kick a game-winning field goal in New England with Adam Vinatieri?
Right, a little payback,
Wow.
And maybe it's a time of destiny, possibly for a quarterback that's aging to go out a certain way.
A little passing of the torch,
and then a passing of the torch to the new one in his second year to see what he can do. So I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to go for one underdog. I'm going to go Indianapolis Colts.
All right. Next game up, we're going to go San Francisco 49ers versus the Carolina Panthers.
Great matchup.
Wow.
Probably the best matchup in the playoffs.
Wow. Rematch of that great 10-9 game from earlier in the season.
Right.
For me, with that game that they played earlier in the year, Colin Kaepernick, he wasn't the same, obviously. He threw for 91 yards and only rushed for 16 yards.
Right.
So that defense definitely gave him problems. But he got his man Crabtree back. The defense is looking great. Bowman and Willis and
Aldon Smith.
He's coming back from rehab and getting into form. And your man, Mr. Ahmad Brooks.
Right. Great player.
So that D is with the 49ers is playing well. Great defensive matchup. But I have to give the edge to the 49ers because of their offense. They have too many weapons. Kaepernick, Vernon Davis, a name we haven't mentioned here often, but Anquan Boldin.
Right.
He's been there, done that last year, so he knows what it takes. And also Mr. Frank Gore, and possibly the best offensive line in football right now.
Right, and they're together. You can tell that they're together. They ride for each other, and they really support each other. And it's hard to have an O-line do that for a whole season with not having a major injury and to be able to stay together. So
that's 49ers. So what about the Carolina Panthers?
So Carolina Panthers, NFC South. All right, so first you got to use the momentum of having the week off and ride the fan base. The fan base will get crazy for this game, and Cam's going to need to rely on them. So all these kids getting those seats in the front row, hoping for that football from Mr. Superman himself. It may be able to happen. I think the key for Cam Newton, to me, he needs less than 2 interceptions. It's okay if he makes a mistake, fumbles maybe once, or throws a pick, but the bottom line is he can't give up points with these turnovers. Maybe a field goal, but can't give up touchdowns. But I think he needs to rush the ball, and I think he needs to rush it well. It's going to be hard for him to do that against that San Francisco D, but I think if he can rush for 60 yards or more on a few plays here and there, maybe one long one for maybe a 20-yard gain, that'll be a real big key. But also I think a key is DeAngelo Williams and Mike Tolbert. You don't really know what you're going to get from these two players. They need to combine, I think, in my mind, for at least 100 yards. And I think they need at least 1 or 2 touchdowns from these players to be able to get that edge. And that might be hard because that San Francisco D is very tough. And
tough.
And they don't really give up 100-yard rushers very often. And I think almost in the whole regular season, they didn't give up one.
Yeah, they didn't give up.
So I'm thinking if you want to win combined, you don't need one guy to get 100, but combined, if you can get 100 from your Mike Tolbert fullback, and your DeAngelo Williams halfback, that might be able to be an edge. But Steve Smith, he might be the X factor in this game because you got Crabtree on one side. Steve Smith has been injured, but he is a gamer. When he comes to play, he plays well, and he plays well often. So look for him to make plays. Also, key players that might be able to make some plays, Mr. Ted Ginn Jr., Dominic Hickson, Greg Olson. These are weapons that Cam needs to find early and often as well. And then the defensive side, I think if Carolina is going to win, it's going to be because of the defense. They have a defense just as good as the Niners.
Oh, just as good.
Right. Luke Kuechly, 10-plus tackles I think he's going to need. Charles Johnson and Greg Hardy, they need 3 sacks combined in my mind to get pressure on Kaepernick. And I think, obviously, the key factor that no one might be talking about right now is Mr. former Redskin, Graham Gano.
Okay.
All right, so he didn't have a kick in the last game, but he might be the factor if it comes down close. Can they rely on Graham Gano to get him the victory? And he might be the unsung hero at the end of the day. What is your prediction for this showcase game of Smash Mouth teams?
My prediction of this game, with the playoffs, usually the team that's playing great towards the end, rides that wave, that momentum, and goes off onto the Super Bowl.
Okay.
So I'm gonna stick with that trend. I'm going with the 49ers on the road to get it done. Cam Newton's first playoff game.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I like that 49er defense, and I think their offense is a little bit better than the Panthers. So I'm going with the 49ers.
Wow, for me, I think both offenses are going to struggle. So don't be surprised when they try to sit back in the pocket and it just doesn't work. A lot of incomplete passes, a lot of maybe some groundings, intentional groundings, some bad plays. But I think when it comes down to it, even though the Panthers are at home, I got to ride the hottest team in football right now, the San Francisco 49ers. I think to me, they it's very hard to go to a Super Bowl and get back there again. But they have the right coaching, the right health of the players, the O-line and the defense, and I think they can make a little bit of a run, and I would have to agree. I'm going to go for the upset. I'm going to have to go San Francisco on the road as well. So let's shift over to our last game.
The last game, another rematch, division rivals. San Diego Chargers versus the Denver Broncos.
All right.
Now, this is a rematch. They split games last year in the regular season.
Okay.
The last game, San Diego won at Denver.
Right. For their only home loss this year.
Their only home loss. And a key stat I took away from that game was the Broncos rushed 11 times for just 18 yards.
Yeah, you got to get it done. You have to have balance.
Wow. And the Chargers controlled the clock so much that game. For Sean Moreno, his first 1,000-yard season in the league. Peyton, of course, he's going to be the MVP.
Right.
But the knock on him is the big game. Can he win the big game? Can he get over the hump? Another question I have going into this game for the Broncos is Wes Welker.
Yeah. Is
he healthy? He has a habit of not coming through in the clutch in big games as well.
Yep. So
for me, I think the Broncos D they have to find a way with no Von Miller. So Mr. Sean Phillips, you're gonna have to provide pressure, and Jack Del Rio, you're gonna have to get in the kitchen and whip up a nice game plan for your defense there. What about you for the San Diego Chargers?
Well, the San Diego Superchargers. I don't think anyone really gave them a shot going into Cincinnati. No one really knew how their running game and their D would play. But Phillip Rivers, comeback player of the year, playing great. Ryan Matthews, actually running the ball well. And if he doesn't run so well, let's just give it to Ronnie Brown, and he'll run as well. So obviously they have some good running backs, and someone I do like is Danny Woodhead.
Oh yeah,
right. So a player that can really make an X factor of obviously of an impact in the game. And I think you have to watch out for him. The blueprint is there. You already beat Denver at home this year, right? You have players like Eddie Royal, Keenan Allen, Antonio Gates. These guys can make plays. But the key for me, whoever's going to win this game for San Diego, if they are going to win, it's a defense. Jarrett Johnson, former Raven, right? Melvin Ingram, stud player. Donald Butler and Mr. Eric Weddle, one of the best safeties in football. And I think that they will be able to run the ball better than Denver. And if they do win, it might be because of that stat that you just mentioned, that the running game might be able to open up the passing game for Phillip and them getting a victory. So who is your prediction for this game?
My prediction in this game, I got to go with Peyton Manning at home. I do believe that he's having a great year, and I'm picking Denver to go to a Super Bowl. So I got to ride with Peyton Manning in Denver. What about you?
All right, so for me, I'm going to go for the upset. I'm going to go for the player that's played hot, just like Peyton Manning all year. Phillip Rivers is going to lead the way. The running game will play well. I think the defense will play well. They're not afraid. They're loose. They're the loosest team in the playoffs. No one gives them a shot. They had the worst chance to advance, and look where they are now. So I'm going to go for the huge upset. Normally, I would go Denver all the way, just like the other matchup, obviously with the Colts and the Patriots. I would go for the favored teams. But sometimes things have to happen.
Underdog got to win.
Underdog's got to win sometimes. So that's my prediction. So these are our predictions for the game. Stay tuned. We'll be back and have another prediction for you as we move forward in another video.
Northwest Sports Fanatics.
Northwest Sports Fanatics.